Hello again, everybody, and welcome in to Titr Insider TV, presented by Buffalo Rock. Ice cold Pepsi Cola tonight. I mean, it's really cold because, once again, I stuck it in the freezer about 15 minutes. Man, that's good. Alongside Rodney Orr from TitRinsider.com, I'm Gary Harris. And Rodney, so much to cover tonight, but we're going to begin with Alabama men's basketball. The Crimson Tide is slowly trying to get back to normal as far as the roster is concerned. But news this week that standout junior forward Tony Mitchell is suspended for the remainder of the season. And Coach Grant says he does not know if Mitchell will return next year. Jamichael Green, who was also suspended, is back at practice, but the coach says he won't play Thursday night against Arkansas, and said the Tide will continue to look to other players to step up their games.
Anytime you have an opportunity to get on the floor with extended minutes, I believe all these guys, they work hard every day. They get an opportunity every day in practice to showcase what they're capable of doing, and sometimes that doesn't translate in terms of opportunities in the game. So they've been afforded opportunities, and I think they've had a chance to take advantage of those. And as you mentioned, we've had several guys maybe that are seeing more consistent playing time than they had seen before, and it's good to see them step up and do some things that they're capable of doing that certainly help our team.
This is what Alabama has been dealing with without Green and Mitchell. 27.2 points per game, 14.2 rebounds per game combined. It has been a huge loss, but Rodney, one good thing that's come out of this, as you heard Coach Grant allude to, other players, namely the two big 7-footers, Musa Gay and Carl Engstrom. Against Tennessee, they combined for 9 points, 9 rebounds, and 6 block shots. They're starting to get better. So, you know what? Green's going to be back at some point. Mitchell's gone for the season, but at least now you kind of know where you stand. Yeah,
I mean, you mentioned the two 7-footers, the big guys, certainly making a lot of impact, or growing as players. And we talked about it last week. Gary, sometimes when things like this happen, there's a silver lining somewhere in the cloud, and that's it. That's one of the things you see. And again, I think that they'll work themselves through this. No question about it. And again, we talked about Anthony Grant, and should he have done this earlier? But you really can't answer those questions. I think what he's done now is he's got his team headed in the right direction.
Tony Mitchell, he's a 22-year-old junior. The question now is, do you think we'll ever see him in an Alabama uniform?
I don't think so. I mean, that's just me. But again, I certainly don't have any definite insight. But I would think that it's probably hard-pressed to see him playing for Alabama again.
First-round NBA draft talent, but he has really hurt himself with what's going on here. All right, for Alabama fans, they want to know, is the Tide in position to make the NCAA tournament? The short answer is yes. If they can win some games down the stretch, they're in position to do it. But again, Green's practicing. He won't play Thursday night. We don't know if he'll play Saturday afternoon against Mississippi State. Your thoughts on the Tide's chances of getting into the NCAA tournament for the first time under Grant?
Well, again, you talked about it, Gary. We've gone through the schedule. I think, they just have to win games. How can you really predict at this point, what's going to happen? They've been a little bit up and down, obviously, with the situation at hand. And, we're going to see how they play through it.
And you've already said that questioning the way that Grant has handled the situation, really nobody can do that because we don't know the details of the situation.
Well, again, it's always easy to sit on the outside and question, a decision. Why didn't he do this sooner? But, really, to be honest with you, Anthony Grant's the only one with those set of facts.
All right. What we do know is that Green is practicing. At some point, we expect him to play. Mitchell is gone. Alabama is in control of its own destiny. Let's take a look at the remaining schedule. And you see 4 big SEC games, 2 of them on the road and 2 of them at home. They're at Arkansas on Thursday, at home against Mississippi State, at home next week against Auburn, and they close it out at Ole Miss, and then an opportunity in the SEC tournament in New Orleans. So Alabama right now is a team that certainly if they win 3 of those 4, get a win or 2 in the SEC tournament, I think they would be a lock. Some work to be done, but they're good enough to beat these teams remaining on their schedule. As you look at that schedule, Rodney, your thoughts on where do you see wins, where do you see possible losses there?
Well, again, Gary, you're talking about predicting something you can't predict. Who would have predicted a couple of weeks ago that they'd lose to LSU? I mean, so again, we're going to have to see which team shows up. And you know, maybe we'll get an idea in the first couple of games how they'll finish out the rest of the season, you know, heading into the SEC tournament. Will they be a hot team heading into the tournament? You know, we'll see.
You know, Arkansas, you previously would have said no chance there. They were 17-0, but Florida went in there and ran them out of Bud Walton Arena on Saturday. So maybe Alabama's catching them at a good time on Thursday night, although they're going to be in a bad mood, and Alabama still will be without JaMychal Green. Well, up next on Titv, the Alabama baseball team opened the season with a thud. They were the ones that got swept at home. Florida Atlantic broke out the brooms. How rare is it? We had never seen it before. We had never seen a non-conference foe sweep Alabama at Sewell Thomas Stadium. Coach Mitch Gaspard, where does he go from here? We'll find out. Plus, we'll get to your phone calls and emails. There's the information on the screen to get in touch with us. 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. Or email us at titv@wvuatv.com. And still to come, Bama fans will forever remember Eric Anders for forcing this game-deciding fumble in the 2009 National Championship game against Texas. But now the former Tide player is looking to make a career in another sport even rougher than football. Mixed martial arts. We'll have the story. Stay tuned. You're watching the show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide, the one, the only Tider Insider Television, presented by Buffalo Rock. Well, it was a start that nobody saw coming. The worst possible scenario to start the season for an Alabama baseball team that they could have had. They were swept by Florida Atlantic at Sewell Thomas Stadium. The first time ever that Bama was swept by a non-conference opponent at home. The good news for Mitch Gaspard is that there's still over 50 games left to play in the season. Plenty of time, obviously, to turn it around.
It's one of those situations that we're so mental right now. I mean, we've got a lot of guys that are really searching right now and kind of in their own dome, you know, right now thinking, you know, the end of the world's coming. But it is baseball. You know, this is one of those games that you can look as poorly as we did for a weekend and just all of a sudden a win and a big hit kind of gets you going in the right direction.
Well, Rodney, you know, I think we knew that there were some question marks with the young pitching staff, especially in the starting rotation. But what really caught me off guard was Bama gave up 23 runs over the three-game series, many of them unearned. Some errors really hurt, but to only score 8 runs in 3 games, I mean, you're going to get swept by a lot of people. I mean, that's not even 3 runs a ball game, and this is a team with 6 position starters back, including Taylor Dugas, the table sitter who came back for his senior year in center field. Really surprising start for Alabama.
Yeah, a lethargic start.
Yeah.
Huh? I mean, just all around. I mean, I know there was a lot of good expectations, certainly starting the season, but you know, like Mitch Gaspard said, you know, it's the first series. Certainly, it's let's not try to say it's anything but
play too much into
very,
it.
very, very disappointing.
These 3 games will be long forgotten if Alabama is in position to get into the NCAA regionals and possibly win an SEC championship, but it shows you just how much work this team has to do. But the young pitching is going to improve. What they've got to get going is the offense. They've got to start getting some hits and some key hits. You heard Coach say 1 key hit is all it takes to get you going. They're going to need that this coming weekend with another 3-game series at home. Well, when Tider Insider TV continues, former Crimson Tide football player Eric Anders has a new career as an MMA fighter. We'll have that story coming up. Also, Tider Insider TV, we'll take your questions. Give us a call, 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. Or email us at titv@wvuatv.com. We'll be back in just a couple minutes. Stay with us here. Phone calls coming up in just a couple of minutes. Again, you can get through and reach us at 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. Call us with a question or a comment here on Tider Insider TV. Well, Eric Anders made his mark as an outside linebacker on Alabama's 2009 National Championship team, and he hoped for a career in professional football. But when that didn't happen, he turned his attention and his talents to a sport even more physical than football, mixed martial arts. Now his career is off and running. Sarah Chavnik has the story.
Eric Anders is known to most Alabama fans for the fumble he forced in the 2009 National Championship game.
Gilbert fumble. Ball's loose. Bama's got it.
Now, Anders is stepping into the ring and taking on a whole new type of competitor.
I'm just a competitor, and you know, without football, you know, I feel like I was missing something in my life, so you know, I figured this would be the next best thing.
Anders is training for MMA, or mixed martial arts fights, and he says putting on the gloves with some of these guys can be daunting.
And when you're competing with guys like Walt Harris or, the Courtney Upshaws when it comes to football, sometimes, I'm just not there yet. So my goal is just to outwork everybody, and, even if someone's better than me, if I'm working harder than they are, then, sometimes I come out on top. Sometimes, their experience and talent trumps mine, but eventually I'm going to get to where I want to be.
Wearing scuba gear to train the body to intake less air, Anders says the conditioning and training for MMA is unlike anything he's experienced before.
This is nonstop. I mean, you saw how it was on that treadmill, man. That's brutal. You can't breathe out your nose, and you're basically breathing through a straw. No offense to Nick Saban and Scott Cochran, but, this condition is on a whole nother level.
Anders says while he recognizes the amount of people training to one day become the top MMA fighters, he hopes the hard work he puts in will pay off. Sarah Chovnik, WVUA Sports.
Good job, Sarah, our Titv correspondent. Rodney, he's just starting out, as we saw, but he's got the athleticism. He's got good size. He's used to being hit and hitting. He works hard.
Well, let me tell you
this. He can make a mark in this.
Eric Anders, you talk about 5-star recruits. He wasn't one of them. He was a 195-pound defensive lineman when he signed late with Alabama, as you remember, one of Mike Shula's recruiting classes. And, you'd have never really given the guy a chance to have the kind of success that he did. Certainly, when Nick Saban got here, he had an opportunity. He took advantage of it, made the great play, of course, had a great season. That wasn't the only play he made. Right. He really made the most of his abilities, and I'm sure in this sport he'll do the same.
We'll keep an eye on him. Well, one guy that's coming into Alabama with a lot more fanfare than Eric Anders did is Dalvin Tomlinson, defensive tackle out of Henry County, Georgia. And watch what he did in the 3A state wrestling finals. He's going to pin his opponent in the 285-pound category in 9 seconds, Rodney. That's a 300-pound man he just dumped. His third consecutive state championship. Wow.
Well, he's an animal. I mean, look. What did he have? 4 events that day? Four matches that day, and won all 4 of them, pinned some guy, 2 or 3 guys in 16 seconds.
But a guy that big in the championship match against obviously a quality wrestler.
Absolutely.
9 seconds.
Well, when you pin 4 in one day in the state championship, state meet, but that's incredible, Gary. And again, you talk about a guy like Dalvin Tomlinson. I mean, he's not only a great wrestler, great football prospect, but the guy plays musical instruments. Mm-hmm. He can probably sing.
He's a Renaissance man.
Really well-spoken guy, very polite. I mean, this guy is going to be a great representative for Alabama football.
Great strength, great leverage. We figured you'd like to see that video right there. He is something else. All right, let's move on to the Alabama softball team. Baseball struggling. Not so much with softball. Doing it again. Second in the country. Off to a 7-0 start this past weekend at the SEC ACC Big 12 Challenge down in Auburn. They go 3-0, beating some quality opponents, including 15th ranked Oklahoma State. They're at UAB tonight. But again, Rodney, we've talked about it ad nauseum on this program the last few years. There's only one goal left out there for Alabama, and that is to become the first SEC school to win a Women's College World Series. Maybe this will be the year.
Yeah, I'll be interested. I haven't had an opportunity to watch them yet, but I just wonder, and again, I don't know how it's changed, if any, from last year, but I knew last year at the end of the year that if they didn't get some firepower in terms of producing some power, putting the ball over the fence, that they're not going to win a championship. And I know that Patrick Murphy is one of the best in the business, and certainly, though, I hope this team has the firepower it needs, because I can tell you, last year Florida was impressive.
Yeah, Florida and some other schools out there that can hit that long ball. You're right. But Alabama's offense has been good so far. Their pitching's been good. Right now, bottom of the second, they lead UAB over in Birmingham 2-0. We'll have highlights of that game for you tonight on the news at 10. Well, the Alabama gymnastics team held the annual Power of Pink meet this past Friday night, promoting breast cancer awareness. And Alabama now tied for 3rd in the national rankings this week. And they were very, very dominant against Arkansas. Scored better than 197 for the second time this year. This weekend, they go to Baton Rouge to take on number 13 LSU. And for the 3rd week in a row, senior Ashley Priest is ranked number 1 in the all-around. Rodney, they're the defending national champions. They're the NCAA champions, and it looks like they could be going for a repeat. They look really strong.
I mean, she's had a juggernaut for how many years? I mean,
since she's been here. 5 NCAA championships.
Hey, let me tell you, typical Alabama fans. A couple of years ago, 3 years ago, when they were struggling a little bit, people thought the program was going down the drain. Yeah. I mean, hey, she's had a great run.
Yeah, going for NCAA championship number 6. this year, bushel of SEC championships as well. All right, let's move on to the phones now. First up is John over in Helena. John, welcome in to TITV.
Hey there.
Hey, man.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you have Alabama's schedule for next year, and also where do you think Justin Fowler is going to fit in on the football team next year, whether offense or are they going to move him to linebacker on defense?
Hey, good questions. Yeah, the schedule's been announced. I don't have it in front of me. I can tell you that the changes in the SEC is Georgia's off the schedule, Vanderbilt's off the schedule, A&M will be in Tuscaloosa, Alabama will be at Missouri. Everything else just kind of flip-flops in the SEC. And, of course, they started off with that big game out in Arlington, Texas against Michigan.
Yeah, that'll be very interesting. Michigan returns several players, Denard Robinson, the great quarterback. So that certainly will be a challenge right off the bat.
Yeah, and Justin Fowler, that's a great question, John, because don't really know what his role is going to be. You got a new offensive coordinator. Could we see some two-back for the first time in years? If so, he might fit at the fullback. He'll be battling to back up Eddie Lacy. We do know this. He's going to play.
Yep, and, there's been some chatter. Now, again, we don't know if it's true yet, but H-back.
Yeah,
maybe see him in a versatile role there.
He's athletic enough.
As far as linebacker goes, I wouldn't expect to see that. I mean, he really looked good.
Yeah, I think he's an offensive guy.
Yeah, definitely. I think he really looked good at what he was doing last year. He's a pounder. Is he an every down back? Maybe not. We don't know, but certainly I think he's got a role as a running back.
H-back might be interesting.
Yeah, might be.
With Smelly leaving.
He can block. Let me tell you what, Justin Fowler, he really, when you look at him, you say, well, he doesn't look like a guy that can catch the ball. I mean, just build and all that. Looks like a straight-ahead runner and all those types of things, but he has great hands. I mean, unbelievable hands. So he certainly could fill that role.
Phone lines are open, 205-348-WVUA. Give us a call now. Right now, let's talk to Andre. And it's an email, so let's not talk to Andre. Let's read his email. Is Xavier Dixon going to start in football? Well, Andre, he's going to battle for a starting position. He's a guy out of Georgia, really good motor, 6'2". He's up to about 265 or so, Rodney?
Probably.
Can get off the edge. Don't know if he'll start, but he'll be battling for it.
Yeah, he is a very talented athlete, Gary. I mean, a tremendous athlete from Griffin, Georgia. He'll be a sophomore, of course, and I think, as Gary mentioned, in the spring, that'll answer a lot of questions. Don't forget the freshman one of the freshmen that he'll be competing against is Ryan Anderson from Daphne, who is very, very talented himself. So you look at Xavier Dixon, you look at Ryan Anderson, and maybe, some other options there at that position. But, again, that is a key in terms of having to replace Courtney Upshaw for next year.
You're disappointed to see all these great players leaving, but there's some real young talent on the defensive side of the ball, and it will be fun in the spring watching all these guys. Adrian Hubbard's another one. Battle for playing time. You know what? They're gonna get after it. And
Travell Dixon, Deion Blue, probably no more important positions in terms of guys that really need to come around next year.
Going to be a lot of fun battles on that defensive side of the ball in spring drills. All right, more of your phone calls, 205-348-WVUA. Give us a ring. We'll be back with more Tiger Insider TV right after this. 205-348-9882 is our phone number if you'd like to call in and ask a question or make a comment. He's Rodney Orr. I'm Gary Harris. Let's go back to the phones and talk with our good buddy LD over in Center. LD, welcome in. How are you?
Just fine.
Good.
Okay, y'all were talking about Justin Fowler. I was wondering how deep we were at tailback.
Well, potentially, LD, very deep. I mean, you got some unproven guys. It all starts with Eddie Lacy, and there's no reason to think that he won't step right in for Richardson the way Richardson stepped in for Ingram. He's a big-time talent. Showed he had some toughness, battled through that turf toe, played with it, played effectively. You got Fowler, you've got D. Hart, another guy, Brent Callaway, sitting there. They've got some freshmen coming in, Rodney. So potentially, it's been this way since Saban got here. This could be a very deep running back stable for the Tide.
Yeah, and you mentioned Eddie Lacy, and we think he's got great talent. Gary's kind of gone through some of the guys. D. Hart is a guy that last year probably would have played had he not injured his knee. He can return punts as well as play that running back position, probably be a situational type back, and really a guy to watch for this spring is T.J. Yeldon.
Right, already on campus.
The freshman from Daphne, and man, he's a talent. I mean, he can do so many different things, and it's going to be interesting to see how quickly he adjusts and gets on the field because he'll probably play next year.
So we expect it to be very strong, LD, to answer your question. Another good situation at running back, some talent, some depth, and you don't ever want injuries, but if they occur, it looks like Alabama can overcome them again the way they did last year when some guys got dinged up. All right, let's take an email from Brooke in Tuscaloosa. Do you think Saban will try to get Phillip Sims some playing time behind A.J.? You know, we've had some really good questions tonight, Brooke, and, you know, I'm not going to knock Nick Saban doing anything because he's obviously knows what he's doing. There are some that say he could do a better job of getting the backup quarterback some snaps. I don't know. You know, there seemed like last year there were some opportunities to get him into some games, and they really didn't do it much. They didn't do it much for A.J. when Greg McElroy was the starter, so I just don't know.
And A.J. last year was a young quarterback. You certainly want him to get as much opportunity as he could to continue to develop. But, you know, as far as you look next season, a lot of that depends on where you are in the game. I mean, you know, you certainly can't put someone in with not much experience when the game's still in doubt. You know, and people say, well, you know, but hey, we've seen how teams come back nowadays, and you have to make sure the team is knocked out before you put someone in.
All right. Thanks for the phone calls and emails. We'll be back after this to wrap it up. And finally, give it up for the Alabama men's golf team. They blew away the field at the Puerto Rico Classic, shooting 30 under par over 3 rounds, winning by 18 shots. And freshman Justin Thomas also secured his second collegiate victory with a 10 under par score. Alabama men's golf under Jay Sewell, one of the best programs in the country. All right, it's dinner time. Tonight, we're going to visit with our good friends over at Buddy's Rib and Steak in Northport. Why don't you come out and join us for some good food about 7:15 or so. For Rodney Orr and our entire Titv crew, I'm Gary Harris. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again next week. Roll Tide, everybody.